Since the last video, I haven't done a whole lot. I cleaned up the debris, smoothed it out, and to the tail, I just slimmed it down a little bit and smoothed it out, added a few divots, and did reinforcing back here so the tail won't come off. The bird itself is pretty much done. 2 steps left. We have to make a stand to hold it, and then there's texture we have to add. So I'm going to set my bird back down. I'm supporting it always with some kind of soft little pillow, Target bag, or whatever. Don't follow. Oh. There we go. I've got a cone. I have to kind of check for size. The tail on my finch is fairly long, so this cone might not be long enough because I'm going to hollow out the inside of the bird, and the cone has to kind of fit up into it and support it, and then I don't want the tail to hit the ground or the table. There's 2 things I can do. One thing is I can tip Birdie forwards a little bit, which makes a big difference. And the second thing I can do is change the length or thickness of my cone. This is just a fresh piece of clay that I made into a cone. I need to fire this, so at this point I can't fire it because it's too thick at the bottom. I'm just gonna go in with an index finger and hollow it out. And I'm not overly concerned about closing it back up again. It's just a stand. If you wanted to close it back up, you could and poke a little hole in it. But otherwise, just a nice little cone, nice little stand for our bird. Okay, looking at how this is going to sit, it cannot sit straight up and down. The tail's going to hit. So I'm going to have to tilt it a little bit, which I'm fine with. I think it looks cute tilted. I need something to hollow it out. Any kind of clay tool. Okay, if I know that my base is going to come up right there, that's where I'm going to start from. So my clay is starting to get a little bit dried out. I'm going to actually use a tool to go in and kind of start the hollowing process. I don't want to make this hole enormous when I first start. Well, then go in with a finger, and it's more pliable on the inside, actually, a little more dry on the outside. So same thing, I'm going to go up, I'm going to go over, I'm going to hollow it out, but I don't want to make any part of the bird too thin. Oh, found an air bubble. It popped. It's a good thing. Clay generally has air bubbles, and if you don't find them and pop them, they create cracking in the kiln. So right now, I have my index finger pushed up this far into the bird. Loop. So that's hollowed out a fair amount, and I curve my finger just a little bit so that I'm hollowing out the whole thing. bottom looks a little messed up, so I'll take off a bit of that. Try to smooth it out a little bit. You always want things to look professional, even on the bottom. And then let's see if my cone fits. No, my cone is too wide. So I'm gonna go a little bit more because my bird's still kind of thick. But I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to make this hole a huge gash. So keep it like that. I got to think about balance. And how is this going to sit best? Okay. So, that being said, I've got my cone that will be fired, and I'm hoping that my bird will be able to rest on my cone and still be balanced. So, I need to make the top of the cone smaller and make sure it's hollow, which it is. And it needs to sit evenly without tipping over. No, there's a lot of other things in the frame, but that looks pretty good. Kind of sits there, and then I can tip it. The bottom part's still kind of wet, so I can manipulate it and tip it how I want it to go. And I can smush it down a little bit, but I still want to be able to take it out. Can I? Without ripping it? Yay, I did. It's kind of like a plug then. These will dry at different rates. So a good idea is don't just stick it in there and leave it. That could create problems. Instead, plastic wrap. We've got our little cone plug holder. And put that on top. And then put my bird on it. And that should help out. We now have a bird who's happily sitting on a stand. The last thing to do is add invented texture. I'm going to do that in a time-lapse video. I'm not going to talk at all. I'm going to use a lot of different types of tools and just add a ton of texture to this bird. This on its own is a stand-up project, but since it's a texture project, I'm going to add a bunch of texture to my birdie.